Good afternoon, actually morning, 9:36 a.m. Tuesday, 5/14/2019. So I'm getting this done on the day it's due. Whatever. I'm sure all of you guys do it too. So let's get right into it. So first question, discuss organizational identity, individual identity, and organizational culture from the perspective of the text. What are they? So part of the book, page 231 has a good example of organizational identity of symbols through a clown, a king, a redhead, a colonel, a cow, and a dog. Obviously we all recognize these symbols for chain restaurants. So it's kind of organizational identity through the symbols and stuff. So when individuals have an identity within the organization, they seek like-minded individuals, and this helps them. This helps the organization grow, and in its own identity. In return, individual growth and organizational identity will grow as well. So that's individual identity and organizational culture. Basically, there's unfortunately no universal consensus. I'm trying to remember what page I read that on. But on the definition of organizational culture, making this one slightly different from the other two. However, there's talk about how cultures can be highs and lows, strongs and weaks. In this chapter 8, it's more or less using the identity to communicate with one another unconsciously accepted assumptions and meanings to shape the everyday organization. So they're similar because they all revolve around one another. They need each other to create an image or identity. Basically, without one, you almost can't have the others. I mean, you can, but I mean they integrate with each other so well that it's kind of hard to have one without the others. They're different in several ways. So, because self-imaging of an organization in its own claim, that's how an organization identifies itself. So it's its own claim. So, like I said earlier, a redhead, or so you have Wendy's. I was trying to remember the name of that one. A king for Burger King, and a clown, McDonald's, and etc. So, where was I going with this? It's its own claim. Then you have people with their own social identity and individual traits that are brought to the organization. So that's their own individual identities. It's the people that bring that business to life, essentially, or that organization to life, followed by creating the climate for the organizational culture. So those individuals create that, is it a hostility climate? Do I need to be supportive in this climate or defensive in this climate? Those individuals bring that, the managers bring that, and everything. So that's how it's its own. So, and all three of these overlap via expressing of members and reflecting on identity. So you reflect your identity, and you get to the next. You go from organizational culture to identity, and from identity to image, and then back by reflecting each one. So, and I read all that on page 231 to 242, I believe. I don't have it pulled up right now. How do the different theories of organizational identity and organizational identification help us better understand organizational life? So, through the paired identities and diversity amongst the organizations, this brings an organization to life, since it's the extension to those that must be successfully balanced. That's on page 232, and some of it was from 237. So 232, the main quote there is that I'm about to sneeze. Okay, I'm good. So the main quote there on 232 is that the paired identities and the diversity amongst the organization, this brings the organization to life, is where I got that. And 237, it's an extension of those that must be successfully balanced, is what is the different theories, essentially, of organizational identity and identification help us better understand the life. So through expressing collective identity, assumptions and meanings will shape the everyday organizational life. And then the different theories help us provide or they provide us with different ideas about what people's backgrounds, as in the work-life balance, is okay, and so forth. So it provides us feedback for organizational life. So I'm trying to think of a professional life situation for this one. I guess with the military, trying to get into your life, they always want to, have recall rosters and stuff. So is it, your own identity within the military, is that your organizational identity, or is that your personal social identity that's getting involved with your organizational life? So, and the last one, this one's gonna be a bit longer. So how does diversity impact organizational life, and identify the perspectives of the author? So this one, having a healthy balance between diversity and dual identities for organizational approach here. This will help balance between organizational life. So by being your own person and having a life, it'll create your work-life balance. So using the book example on page 251, they mentioned that the rise in technology makes people more capable, or it makes it more capable for individuals to feel that they need to work from home, so like they go home and then they get an email from work, someone else was working somewhere else out of state or something, and they sent them an email, so they feel the need that they're working 24/7, that they're answering those emails from home, they're answering those phone calls from home, which increases pressure to answer those work-related things, right? So I think they said that 70% of individuals in the upcoming technology world were feeling that they were more involved with work and less involved with their families, specifically their spouses and children. So there must be a balance between those. It also helps the organization the more you associate oneself with the organization. So if you identify by yourself and you bring an identity to your work, and you can separate those, it will help the organization because you're seeking more like-minded individuals in that organization. So when you have like work buddies, you're seeking those like-minded individuals within your work. So you associate yourself with that job. Like, hey, yeah, I work at Boeing, and these people work at Boeing, so you might hang out with them after work or something. This provides the employees with the sense of feeling that they're not being overworked, giving them an organization identity outside of their personal identity. So within the Marine Corps, one of the things I like to talk about here is a healthy balance between the diversity and dual identities. So the Marine Corps loves to get into everybody's business. I think some of the other military branches have mandatory fun days or required fun days. A lot of the mandatory fun days are on Fridays, so they call them Fun Day Fridays. They're not really that fun. They're, if anything, more degrading, and a lot of individuals hate them. I personally hated mandatory fun days. There was nothing fun about them. It was appreciated, that they were trying to get involved in our lives and like trying to, get people to do things and cooperate with one another and all this other stuff, but they just were, most of us preferred to just go home at 16:30, and have a done day. But those mandatory fun days, they drag them out to like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and you're like, I've been at work since 6 in the morning. Why would I want to be here until 8, 9 o'clock at night? Getting so mad. But that's like an example of I'm gonna say an unhealthy balance between the dual identities, because the Marine Corps was trying to get into your life and trying to be that organization that they wanted you to appreciate them and help them identify themselves, instead of letting you do your own thing and maybe like having the mandatory fun day through the day of work instead of outside of work. So it is what it is, but I hope that makes sense to everyone. And that's all I have for this week for Module 7, Chapter 8. And I'll see you guys in class. Thanks.